Hello, awesome people. Welcome to Awesome Books episode 2. Now, first things first, I have to begin by an apology. The first video wasn't so audible because I was battling some illness, and so my voice was a little bit messed up. But I sincerely apologize for that. This was the episode we did on atomic habits. I sincerely apologize for that. Now, on to the next. So in this episode, we shall be reviewing this book, Soar by Bishop T.D. Jakes. A very, very interesting fellow. And before we get into it, thank you so much for always finding our content relevant. Remember to subscribe to this channel so that you can get enlightened and grow. Now, first things first, this book is interesting because the author is also an interesting fellow. We're talking about a pastor, an entrepreneur, a filmmaker, a producer. You know, this is a practical illustration of what a jack of all trades means. And he's so effective in his work that he's saluted by all these fields I've mentioned. And his philosophy is simple, that with a clear vision, with faith, with determination, and with proper strategic planning, we can achieve all that we want in this life. Wow, so interesting. So in 2017, he wrote a book and he entitled it Soar, Build Your Vision from the Ground Up. Quite an interesting book. And this leads me to the next point of this video. Who do I think this book was written to? I personally believe this book was written to anyone seeking to make that paradigm shift. Now, with interest in business, of course, but generally anybody seeking to make a paradigm shift. So if you want to begin that startup, if you're a young entrepreneur, and even if you are into business, into entrepreneurship, but you want to get back to the basics of starting up an entrepreneurial journey, I think this book is written for you. Now, a general overview of this book. This book is not one of those books that, the author writes so that you can get rich quick. Nah, this is not it. This is also not a book that will tell you what your dream is. It's not a book that will give you schemes of making money quick. Instead, it's a book that will ask you some fundamental questions so that you can be intentional with the dream that is already in you. Now remember, if you don't work on that dream of yours, it will remain a dream in your sleepy bed. So this book makes you think of those fundamental questions that you're supposed to ask yourself so that you transform your dream into a reality. Now, this book has 12 chapters which have been divided into 4 parts. And part 1, we talk about expanding your vision. Part 2, we talk about building your wings. Part 3, we talk about clearing the clouds. And the final part, we talk about soaring to new heights. Now, I'll go part by part because each part has 3 chapters. So I'll give you a summary of what I think is important in all those 12 chapters in my perspective. So in part 1, we have expanding your vision. And it's important here to realize that T.D. Jakes says that, without vision, you're just simply drifting through life. You need to visualize who you want to be, what you want to be, what kind of business you want to set up, what kind of endeavor you want to get into. Now, that will be a roadmap because it's a GPS. And how do you get that? He speaks about listening to your instincts because these will, they have deposits of what purpose you have in your life, what God has placed you into this world to do. And if you assume these instincts, then most probably it doesn't end well. But if you listen to them, then the universe also supports you in this journey you're taking. Now, Bishop T.D. Jakes also emphasizes on the importance of observing and analyzing the conditions of your flight. And this can be loosely translated into what we'll call a SWOT analysis, talking about strength, weakness, opportunities, and strength. Basic stuff for beginning any project. And so you need to watch the trends of the time, of the place you're in, of the environment you're in, and then timing is key. You have to hop in at the right time because that will be an added advantage. So he speaks about knowing why you're starting. Make sure your motivations are straight, all right? You need to begin with the right motivations. Don't begin because everyone is beginning. Don't begin because this is a trend. Don't begin because this is giving you some short-term gratification. No. Your motivations have to be as objective as possible, and you always have to remember why you began. And to the second part, we read about building your wings. So here he talks a lot about inspiration and innovation. He talks about the support system that you're supposed to have. And interestingly, he talks about what he calls a flight plan, all right? So you need to know the what, who, when, where, why, and how. On the what, you need to know what problem are you solving in your journey of entrepreneurship? What problem are you solving in this new endeavor you're getting yourself into? What problem are you solving? And what's your motivation? On the who, he speaks about who needs the solution you're giving. He speaks about who needs the solution you're giving. And you also need to know who is supposed to be in your team. Finally, you also need to know who are the possible investors in this endeavor you're getting yourself into. Now, on why, you need to know why these people need your solution. You also need to know that despite all these competitions around, why will they choose you? And also, interestingly, you need to ask yourself, why would you possibly fail? And from that, you'll make things right. Number 4, he speaks about how. Here it's interesting because he speaks about how will you operate. You're talking about the sales, you're talking about the marketing, you're talking about the monitoring and evaluation, you're talking about the how of the whole endeavor. How will things operate? Number 5, he speaks about where. So you need to know where is the airspace of your flight. You need to know where you want to be in the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or even 1 year. And finally, he speaks about the when. So when are you starting? When will you know you're making enough profits? When will you know that this thing is it? And when will you know when to land? So of our interest here is the planning and strategizing that he talks about. And it reminded me of these, the stages of project planning, what we call a project life cycle. So you begin with initiation of the project, we go to planning, we go to execution, we get to monitoring and evaluation, then we have the closure. Very interesting. You need to have all these on your desk before you even hop into that entrepreneurial journey that you want. And finally, on this part of this book, he talks about e-commerce, and here we're talking about digital marketing. We live in a day and age where all these media gadgets can help us do our marketing, do our sales. So he talks about taking full advantage of that. Don't let it lie there. Use all these tools because you'll have a bigger audience just by using and embracing social media in your marketing. The third part of this book, he talks about clear the clouds. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about having a flight crew. So you need to assemble that dream team. And that takes me back to what Bill Hybel say when organizing that dream team. Who qualifies to be in your dream team? Bill Hybel says there are 3 C's. 1 is character. You need to be of good character. 2 is competence. You need to be competent for the job. And 3 is chemistry. You need to have a good, operation with the members of the team. So anybody who fits these 3 C's, he can hop into the team. Secondly, he talks about the ground crew. So remember the flight crew. So we have also the ground crew. And here we're talking about the supporters, we're talking about the advisors. Not everybody is supposed to be on board with you in the cockpit. There are those who are supposed to be down there so that they can signal you, they can advise you, they can support you from there. And finally, he talks about leadership. So here he says that success requires 3 T's. So the first is time, the second is talent, and the third is tenacity. Finally, he ends this part by dealing with how to deal with failure. Sometimes you take off, but that plane has to crash because you didn't check one of the engines well. So he talks about how to deal with failure when you are airborne and things don't work out. How do you get to repair this plane of yours, get into another runway, and also take off? So the fourth part of this book, he talks about soaring to new heights. And this being the last part of the book, he talks about inspecting your journey for impact. He talks about knowing when to leave it to the professionals to handle your business now. He also talks about branding. You need to market well with feelings. There's a difference between having a company and having a brand. We'll get into that in some other review. He also talks about creating a social network, social capital, and lots of networking in your business. And finally, he talks about creating your legacy. Now, with that said and done, let's talk about the principles of soaring that I find interesting. The principles that I found in this book that can really help you soar. So first, I think it's important to have a clear vision. 2, it's important to trust your instincts because That is where your God-given purpose lies. 3, I think it's important to get passionate and enthusiastic in your endeavors. Number 4, strategic planning is important and paramount. You don't just drift through things, you need to plan everything. 5, it's important to get mentors and coaches, because there are people who have walked that path before and they have made success and they've made failures in that. So they need to show you the bits and pieces, how to do a number of things. And finally, 6 is the faith and resilience through success and failure. So I think those are the 6 principles that can guide one who wants to soar, according to what has been stipulated in this book by Bishop T.D. Jakes. And finally, my favorite quotation or chapter in this book. I think my favorite part of this book is what T.D. Jakes calls the flight plan. The what, the who, the why, the how, the where, the when. So you need to know what problem you're solving and what are your motivations. You need to know who needs the solution you're offering and who needs to be in your team and who are the potential investors in your journey. You need to know why they need your solution over others. You need to know how you will operate. You need to know where is your airspace, and you need to know when you will start and when you will land. That has been my short summary of this book. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read this book and you have something that I missed, kindly just put it down in the comment section so that we can all learn and grow. Thank you for your time, and let's meet in the next book. If you haven't subscribed, kindly remember to do that and press that notification button so that whenever I post something, it is on your notification. Thank you, awesome people, and be blessed.